The sun bled into the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows over the ruins of a once thriving city. Dust swirled in the warm breeze, settling over the cracked pavement and rusting carcasses of abandoned vehicles. Owen Kessler adjusted the strap of his backpack, his ribs pressing painfully against the fabric of his torn jacket. It had been 3 days since he last found food, and his body was beginning to feel the weight of starvation. He moved cautiously down the street, stepping around shattered glass and old, dried bloodstains. His senses remained on high alert, eyes scanning every doorway, ears straining for any sound that didn't belong. This city, like every other, belonged to them now. The undead. They lurked in the alleyways, inside hollowed-out buildings, and beneath the rubble of collapsed homes. Always watching, always listening, always waiting for the scent of the living. Owen had spent the last year learning their habits, understanding their movements, and, most importantly, surviving despite them. But survival wasn't living. His water supply was nearly gone, and the hunger clawed at him with a ferocity that even the infected couldn't match. He needed to find supplies, and fast. He ducked into a convenience store, his fingers tightening around the grip of his rusted crowbar. The place had already been looted, shelves overturned, and food long gone. He knew the odds were slim, but hope was a dangerous thing to let go of entirely. He rummaged through the wreckage, finding only an empty can of beans and a faded candy wrapper. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Then he heard it. A sound, soft at first, like the wind shifting through broken glass. Then a low, guttural snarl. Owen froze. He turned his head slowly toward the back of the store. A door, slightly ajar, swayed ever so gently. The dim light inside flickered. Something was in there. Instinct took over. He moved soundlessly, shifting his weight to avoid loose debris. He reached the door and nudged it open with the crowbar. The stench hit him instantly, rot, decay, and something worse. A figure lurched forward from the darkness. Its milky eyes locked onto him, and its mouth gaped open in a wet, sucking sound as it let out a sickening screech. The infected had once been a man, maybe a worker, maybe a father. Now it was nothing but hunger and rage. Owen swung before it could reach him. The crowbar cracked against the side of its head, sending it stumbling. But it didn't stop. They never stopped. It lunged again, teeth snapping inches from Owen's arm. He shoved it back, using the wall to pin its body before driving the crowbar through its skull. The thing let out one last twitch, then collapsed, lifeless once more. His breath came in ragged gasps. He had taken down dozens of them before, but every encounter was a reminder, one mistake, one misstep, and he'd end up just like them. He searched the back room quickly, wiping sweat from his forehead. There had to be something, anything. Then he found it. An old storage locker. He pried it open and almost laughed in relief. Inside, a half-empty water bottle, a can of peaches, and a small medical kit. It wasn't much, but it was salvation for at least another day. His fingers closed around the can, stomach growling in anticipation. But then... a sound. Not the infected. Something else. A howl. It echoed through the empty streets, distant but unmistakable. It wasn't a wolf or a dog. It was something worse. Something that had learned to hunt in the wasteland, just like him. Owen grabbed his supplies and moved. Fast. As he stepped outside, the wind carried the distant sound again, closer this time. His grip tightened on the crowbar as he scanned the rooftops, the alleyways, the shattered remains of civilization around him. And then he saw it. A pair of glowing yellow eyes in the distance. Watching. Waiting. Owen's pulse pounded in his ears. The wasteland wasn't just full of the dead. It had monsters of its own. And tonight, he wasn't the only one hunting. Owen didn't waste time. The moment he saw the glowing yellow eyes in the distance, he ducked behind a rusted truck, pressing his back against the cold metal. His heartbeat thundered in his chest, each breath controlled and measured. Whatever was out there, it wasn't one of the infected. They didn't move like that. The eyes blinked once, then vanished into the night. Owen clenched his jaw. That wasn't good. Shifting his weight slowly, he peered around the edge of the truck. The ruined cityscape stretched out before him, abandoned buildings, overturned vehicles, the skeletal remains of a world long gone. But now, it felt different. He could feel something in the air. A presence. He wasn't alone. Gripping his crowbar tightly, he moved low and fast, weaving between debris and shadows. Whatever had been watching him was smart enough to stay hidden, which meant it was hunting. He'd seen desperate survivors do it before, stalking the weak, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But deep down, he knew this was something else. A faint clicking sound echoed through the streets. Soft. Rhythmic. It wasn't the gurgling moans of the undead, nor the careless shuffling of a desperate scavenger. No, this was deliberate. Calculated. His fingers itched toward the hunting knife strapped to his side. The crowbar was good for infected, blunt force to the skull did the trick. But if this was something faster, smarter, he'd need steel. A gust of wind kicked up dust and loose paper, swirling through the empty streets. Owen took the opportunity to move. He sprinted across an open intersection, boots barely making a sound on the cracked pavement. If he could make it to the overpass, he'd have the high ground and a better vantage point. Then, a blur of movement to his left. Owen spun, knife in hand. But there was nothing. Just an empty alleyway, littered with shattered bricks and old corpses. His eyes darted from shadow to shadow. Another sound. This time, behind him. He turned, too slow. Something slammed into him with the force of a freight train, sending him sprawling across the pavement. His knife clattered from his grip as he rolled, instincts taking over. He barely had time to lift the crowbar before the creature was on him. It wasn't human. The thing crouched low, its long limbs tense like coiled springs. Its skin was stretched tight over sharp bones, and its face was wrong. Twisted. It had once been a man, maybe, but now it was something else entirely. The infection had warped it beyond recognition, its jaw unhinged too wide, teeth jagged and uneven. Its fingers, elongated and clawed, scraped against the ground as it circled him. A stalker. Owen had heard rumors. Some of the infected changed over time, became something worse. More aware. More dangerous. But he had never seen one up close. Until now. The stalker lunged again, and Owen barely rolled out of the way in time. It moved fast, too fast. He swung the crowbar in a wide arc, aiming for its head, but the creature twisted, avoiding the blow with unnatural speed. This wasn't like fighting a normal infected. This was a predator. And Owen was prey. He scrambled back, grabbing a broken piece of rebar from the ground. The creature crouched again, those glowing yellow eyes locked onto him, studying, waiting for the next attack. Then, suddenly, a distant gunshot. The stalker's head snapped toward the sound. Owen didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, driving the rebar straight into the creature's chest. It shrieked, flailing as he twisted the metal deep. Then, with a final, gurgling snarl, it collapsed. Owen stumbled back, panting. Blood, black and thick, pooled beneath the body. He wiped sweat from his brow, his entire body shaking with adrenaline. Then he remembered the gunshot. Gunfire meant people. Survivors. Or worse. He retrieved his knife, gave the stalker one last look, then turned toward the sound. One way or another, he wasn't alone in the wasteland anymore. Owen crouched low, gripping his knife as he moved toward the sound of the gunshot. The stalker's body lay motionless behind him, its black blood pooling into the cracks of the pavement. The memory of its unnatural speed still sent shivers down his spine. But now he had a different problem. Gunfire was rare in the wasteland. Ammunition was too valuable to waste unless it was absolutely necessary. Which meant one of two things: either someone was in serious trouble, or they were dangerous enough not to care about drawing attention. Either way, he had to know. The overpass loomed ahead, a crumbling stretch of concrete littered with rusted-out cars and skeletal remains. Owen climbed the incline carefully, staying low, his movements silent. The world had no room for mistakes anymore. He reached the top and scanned the area. Smoke curled from a burning car near the edge of the bridge. A fresh body lay sprawled on the ground, a man, his head blown open by a close-range shot. His rifle was still clutched in stiff fingers. Owen swore under his breath. Someone had done this recently. A voice rang out, sharp and controlled. "Drop the knife." Owen tensed. Slowly, he turned his head. A woman stood about 15 feet away, a shotgun aimed at his chest. She was lean, her face streaked with dirt, but her stance told him everything he needed to know. She wasn't new to this. Behind her, a young boy clutched at her jacket, wide eyes filled with fear. "Not looking for trouble," Owen said evenly, keeping his hands where she could see them. "Just passing through." The woman didn't lower the gun. "Then keep walking." Owen could hear the tension in her voice, the weight of exhaustion. He had heard it before, in others. Survivors who had lost too much, who had seen too much. "You wasted a bullet," he said, nodding toward the dead man. "That was yours?" She didn't answer. But the boy did. "He tried to take our stuff," the kid blurted out. "Mom had to." "Ryan," the woman snapped, cutting him off. Her eyes flicked between Owen and the dead man. Owen exhaled slowly. "Fair enough." The woman studied him for a long moment before finally lowering the shotgun, just a little. "You alone?" "Yes." "You sure?" Owen's eyes hardened. "I wouldn't be standing here if I wasn't." She considered this, then nodded toward the body. He wasn't alone. There were 3 of them. Owen felt a chill creep down his spine. "Where are the others?" The woman's jaw tightened. "That's what I was about to find out." Owen glanced at the boy, then back to her. "You should leave." "If they come back." "Not an option," she interrupted. "They took our pack. Our food, our water." Owen exhaled through his nose. He could walk away. It wasn't his fight. It never was. But then he looked at the kid. Thin. Pale. Probably hungry. Damn it. He adjusted the strap of his bag. "Which way did they go?" The woman narrowed her eyes. "You're offering to help?" "Let's just say I don't like people who steal from kids." The woman hesitated, then finally nodded. "Down the highway." Abandoned motel. Owen checked his knife and picked up the dead man's rifle. The magazine was half empty, but it was better than nothing. "Then let's go," he said. And together, they disappeared into the night. The night swallowed them as they moved through the ruins of the highway. Owen kept his grip firm on the rifle, every nerve in his body on high alert. The woman, who had finally introduced herself as Lena, moved with practiced silence, her shotgun held steady. The boy, Ryan, stayed close, his small hands clutching at his mother's jacket. The motel loomed in the distance, its neon sign long dead, windows shattered, and walls covered in creeping vines. It was the kind of place where bad things happened even before the world ended. Owen crouched behind an overturned truck, motioning for Lena to do the same. "How many were there?" "3, maybe 4, she whispered. "The guy I killed was one of them. If we're lucky, they're down to 2. Owen didn't believe in luck. He scanned the building. A small fire flickered behind one of the broken windows, casting long shadows against the wall. That meant they weren't expecting company. Amateurs. "Stay here," he said, handing Ryan the rifle. "Just in case." Ryan's eyes widened. "But I don't." "You don't have to shoot," Owen said quietly. "Just hold it. If something happens, point and pull the trigger." The kid swallowed hard but nodded. Owen turned to Lena. "We go in quiet. Fast. Get what we need and get out." She nodded. Owen moved first, creeping across the cracked pavement, pressing himself against the motel's outer wall. He could hear voices inside, low, relaxed. Whoever these people were, they weren't on guard. He peered through the broken window. 2 men sat near the fire, their weapons propped lazily against a chair. A backpack, Lena's backpack, lay on the floor between them. One of them laughed. "You should have seen his face, man. Thought we were gonna let him walk." The other snorted. "Idiot. Should have just handed everything over." Owen felt Lena tense beside him. Her fingers tightened around the shotgun. "They're relaxed now," Owen whispered. "We take them out before they can grab their guns." She nodded once. Owen moved first. He slipped through the shattered doorway like a shadow, his knife in his hand. The first man barely had time to react before Owen was on him, slashing deep across his throat. Blood sprayed onto the wall as the man gurgled, collapsing without a sound. The second man lunged for his gun. Lena fired. The shotgun roared, sending the man flying back into the wall, his chest a ruin of blood and shredded fabric. The fire crackled, the scent of gunpowder mixing with the stale air. Silence. Owen exhaled, lowering his knife. He checked the bodies quickly. Dead. Lena grabbed her backpack, checking inside. They barely touched anything. Owen nodded toward a side room. "We should check for more supplies." Lena hesitated. "We should leave." Owen turned to her. "We came all this way. There could be more food. More water." Lena sighed but nodded. "Fine. Quick." Owen stepped into the back room. It was dark, the air thick with the scent of rot. He swept the flashlight over the shelves, some old canned goods, a couple of bottles of water. Enough to last a few days. Then something moved. A shape in the corner. Owen froze, his knife raised. "Lena." She stepped in behind him, gun ready. The shape shifted, moaned. A figure, slumped in the corner, half buried in shadows. Not an infected. A girl. Thin. Maybe 16. Her hands were bound. A bruise darkened the side of her face. Owen cursed under his breath. Lena stepped closer, eyes narrowing. They were keeping her here. The girl blinked up at them, dazed. Please," her voice was weak. "Don't let them." Owen cut her bindings, helping her sit up. She was light, too light. Probably hadn't eaten in days. Lena exhaled sharply. "We don't have time for this." Owen looked at the girl. Then at Lena. "We're not leaving her," he said. Lena clenched her jaw but didn't argue. Outside, Ryan waited, wide-eyed as Owen carried the girl out. The boy's gaze flicked to the motel, then back to Owen. "Are they?" "Yeah," Owen said simply. "They won't be bothering anyone anymore." Lena sighed. "Let's go." As they disappeared into the night, the motel burned behind them. And Owen knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. The motel burned behind them, casting long, flickering shadows across the highway. Smoke curled into the night sky, an unintentional beacon for anything, or anyone, still lurking in the ruins. Owen knew they had to move fast. Fire attracted the wrong kind of attention. The girl in his arms trembled violently, her breath shallow. Malnourished. Weak. But alive. That was more than he could say for most people these days. Lena moved ahead, shotgun ready, scanning their surroundings. Ryan kept close to her side, gripping the rifle Owen had given him. He had no idea if the boy would actually use it if the time came, but that wasn't a question he wanted answered tonight. They needed shelter. Somewhere safe. Somewhere the fire wouldn't lead trouble straight to them. "There's an old auto shop down the road," Lena said over her shoulder. "Boarded up last time I saw it. Might still be secure." Owen nodded. "Lead the way." The road stretched out before them, cracked and overgrown with weeds. Each step felt heavier than the last, exhaustion gnawing at Owen's muscles. The adrenaline from the fight at the motel was fading, replaced by the dull ache of old wounds and too many sleepless nights. Then he heard it. A sound in the distance. Not the moaning of the infected. Not the unnatural clicking of a stalker. Voices. Owen's grip tightened on his knife. Lena stopped, eyes narrowing. She had heard it too. They moved quickly, ducking behind the rusted shell of an abandoned truck. Owen carefully shifted the girl onto the ground, pressing a finger to his lips as she weakly nodded in understanding. The voices grew closer. A group. At least 4, maybe 5. Their footsteps were heavy, careless. Not scavengers. Hunters. Owen risked a glance around the truck. Men armed with rifles and machetes moved down the road, their faces smeared with dirt and something darker. They were talking loudly, laughing. One of them carried a severed hand on a string, swinging it like a trophy. Owen's stomach twisted. These weren't just bandits. They were worse. One of them, a tall, bearded man with a scar across his forehead, gestured toward the fire in the distance. That wasn't there earlier. Someone's been busy. Another man grunted. Think it's the girls' group? Owen exchanged a glance with Lena. The girl they had rescued, whoever she was, had been taken by these people. And now they were looking for her. We find her, the scarred man continued, we take her back. You know what the butcher wants. The butcher. Owen didn't know who that was. But he knew it wasn't someone they wanted to meet. Lena's jaw tightened. She looked at Owen, eyes filled with an unspoken question. What now? Owen looked at the girl, shivering in the dirt. At Ryan, gripping the rifle with white knuckles. At Lena, whose fingers twitched near the trigger of her shotgun. He exhaled slowly. Then he made a choice. We take them out, he whispered. Lena's eyes flickered with surprise, but she didn't argue. Owen's voice was steady. If they find the girl, they'll take her back. If they find us, they'll kill us. We end this now. Lena studied the men for a moment, then nodded. How? Owen's mind raced. The group was moving toward the fire, unaware of them. That gave them the advantage. Lena, you take the left flank. I'll go right. He glanced at Ryan. You stay here with her. If things go bad. Ryan cut him off. I can help. Owen looked at the boy, at the way his small hands clutched the rifle. He wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him to stay hidden, to keep his innocence for as long as possible. But the Wasteland didn't care about innocence. Owen placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. If things go bad, you run. You take her, and you run. Got it? Ryan swallowed hard. Then nodded. Owen turned back to Lena. Let's go. They moved swiftly, splitting up, weaving through the wreckage of the old world. The men had stopped near the remains of a gas station, their laughter echoing in the empty streets. Owen took a deep breath. Then he struck. His knife found the throat of the first man before he even knew he was being hunted. Blood sprayed against the pavement as the body crumpled. Lena's shotgun roared, blasting another man backward into the shattered window of the gas station. The others spun, shouting, raising their weapons. Owen was already moving. A bullet whizzed past his ear as he lunged at the scarred man. They crashed to the ground, fists flying. Owen's knife was knocked from his grasp as the man landed a brutal punch to his ribs. Owen grunted, twisting, grabbing a chunk of broken asphalt. He swung it hard into the man's face, feeling the crunch of bone beneath the impact. The scarred man collapsed. Another gunshot. A scream. Owen turned to see Lena standing over the last man, shotgun smoking. The body twitched once, then stilled. Silence. The fight was over. Owen wiped blood from his forehead, breathing heavily. Lena looked at the bodies, then at him. No survivors. Owen nodded. They had made enough enemies today. Ryan peeked out from behind the truck, eyes wide. The girl was still on the ground, staring at the dead men with an unreadable expression. Owen approached her, kneeling. "You know who the butcher is?" The girl hesitated. Then she nodded. "He's coming," she whispered. "And he won't stop." Owen exchanged a glance with Lena. The Wasteland had many horrors. And it seemed they had just made an enemy far worse than the infected. The bodies lay still, cooling in the dirt as the distant fire from the motel burned low. Owen stood over the scarred man's corpse, the taste of iron thick in his mouth. The night air carried the scent of blood, gunpowder, and something else, something rotten. The girl, still too weak to stand on her own, clung to Ryan's arm. Her dark eyes darted between the bodies, her hands trembling. Owen had seen that look before. The look of someone who had spent too much time under the boot of monsters. Lena reloaded her shotgun with a sharp click. "We need to move. If this butcher is half as bad as she says, he's going to come looking." Owen exhaled slowly, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He crouched beside the scarred man, rifling through his pockets. The dead man's face was twisted in a permanent sneer, his skull caved in from the blow Owen had delivered. Then Owen found it. A small metal token, cold against his fingers. He held it up to the dim moonlight. It was crude, hand-forged. A symbol was stamped into the metal, 3 jagged lines crossing through a circle, like claw marks. The girl gasped. Owen turned to her. "You recognize this?" Her face had gone pale. "That's his mark." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The butcher brands everything he owns." Owen's grip tightened on the token. He had heard of people like the butcher before, warlords who rose from the ashes, carving out their empires with blood and fear. Men who saw the apocalypse as an opportunity. He pocketed the token. Lena looked over her shoulder, scanning the highway. "We're exposed here. That auto shop is our best shot. We move now." Owen nodded. "Let's go." They moved quickly, keeping to the shadows. The auto shop came into view, an old repair garage, its windows shattered, its rusted sign barely clinging to the roof. Lena was the first to reach the door. She pressed against it, testing the lock. It gave with a slight creak, opening into darkness. Owen went in first, gun raised. His flashlight swept across the space, dust-covered workbenches, rusting toolboxes, the lingering scent of oil and decay. But no movement. "Clear," he murmured. Ryan helped the girl inside, settling her against a pile of old tarps. She let out a quiet sigh, exhaustion washing over her. Owen turned to Lena. "We need to know what we're dealing with." He motioned to the girl. "She needs to talk." Lena sat beside the girl, her expression softer than usual. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. "Ellie." Lena nodded. "All right, Ellie. You said the butcher won't stop. What does that mean?" Ellie swallowed hard. "He takes people." Her voice was thin, shaking. "He builds camps. Makes them work. The ones who can't," she trailed off, her eyes darkening. "He marks them first. Then he... She didn't finish. She didn't need to." Owen clenched his jaw. Lena sighed, rubbing her temples. "So he's a slaver." Ellie nodded. Ryan, silent until now, spoke up. "The men we killed, they were his, weren't they?" Ellie didn't answer. But her eyes said enough. Owen exhaled. "That means he'll come looking." Lena cursed under her breath. "So what? We keep running?" Ellie shifted. "No. You don't run." She looked at Owen. "You hide." Owen frowned. "What do you mean?" Ellie pulled up her sleeve, revealing a faint burn scar on her arm, 3 jagged lines cutting through a circle. The same symbol as the token. "I know how he works," she whispered. "When his men don't come back, he sends hunters. If they don't come back, he comes himself." She looked between them, her gaze sharp despite the weakness in her body. You don't fight the butcher. You disappear before he finds you. Silence settled over them. Owen ran a hand over his face. Running had been his way of life for years. But something about this felt different. He wasn't just running for himself anymore. Lena's jaw clenched. So what do we do? Owen looked at the token in his hand. He thought of the men at the motel. The ones on the road. The way they had laughed as they talked about taking Ellie back. A slow anger burned in his chest. He wasn't the type to pick fights. But some fights had a way of finding you, whether you wanted them or not. We prepare, he said finally. Lena raised an eyebrow. For what? Owen looked at her. For war. The night pressed in around the auto shop, thick with tension. Owen sat near the boarded-up window, sharpening his knife in slow, deliberate strokes. Each scrape of metal against stone was a reminder of what was coming, of what had to be done. Lena stood by the doorway, her shotgun propped against the wall. She was pacing, restless. This is a bad idea, she muttered. We should be moving, not waiting. Owen didn't look up. We move, we die tired. She shot him a glare but said nothing. Ryan and Ellie sat together on a pile of old tires, whispering. Ryan had given her one of his protein bars, one of the last. She ate it slowly, savoring each bite. Owen glanced at them. Ellie, how many men does the butcher usually send? She hesitated, chewing on her lip. It depends. If he thinks his men are just late, he'll send a small group. 5, maybe 6. But if he thinks they were killed... Her voice trailed off. Owen already knew the answer. Lena crossed her arms. Then what's the plan? We sit here and wait to get slaughtered? Owen ran a hand over his face, exhaling. We set a trap. Lena scoffed. A trap? Against an army? We don't need to fight an army, Owen said. Not yet. We just need to send a message. Lena raised an eyebrow. And what message is that? Owen met her gaze. That we're not prey. They worked through the night. The auto shop was surrounded by wrecked cars and crumbling buildings, perfect for an ambush. Owen and Lena used whatever they could find, metal scraps, broken glass, old fuel canisters. Ellie, despite her exhaustion, helped where she could. She knew how the butcher's men moved, how they thought. She showed them the best hiding spots, the best angles for an attack. Ryan, to his credit, didn't complain. He stayed close, helping where he could. When Owen asked him if he was scared, the boy just nodded. Good, Owen had said. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it freeze you. By dawn, the trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait. The first sign of trouble came just past noon. Owen spotted the dust cloud first, rising in the distance like a storm. Then came the low growl of engines, motorcycles and an old, rusted truck. Lena checked her shotgun. Showtime. Owen climbed onto the roof of the auto shop, staying low. The binoculars he had scavenged were cracked, but they did the job. 5 men. 3 on motorcycles, 1 in the truck, and another standing in the bed of it, scanning the area with a rifle. They were dressed like the ones they had killed, leather, scavenged armor, the butcher's mark burned into their flesh. One of them, a stocky man with a chain wrapped around his fist, motioned toward the auto shop. The truck slowed. The riders flanked it. Owen signaled to Lena. She took a deep breath, then fired the first shot. The rifleman in the truck bed crumpled instantly, blood spraying as he collapsed onto the metal. Chaos erupted. The bikers revved their engines, fanning out. The man with the chain pointed toward the auto shop. Find them. Owen moved fast, lining up his next shot. He aimed for the truck's engine and pulled the trigger. The bullet hit metal, and a second later, fire burst from the hood. Smoke billowed, the driver screaming as he tumbled out. Lena took down one of the bikers with a blast from her shotgun, sending him flying off his ride. Then came the others. The second biker skidded around the wreckage, raising his pistol only for Owen's knife to bury itself in his throat. The last biker dismounted, pulling a machete free from his belt. He spotted Ryan and Ellie near the garage and sprinted toward them. Owen's heart lurched. "Ryan! Move!" The boy didn't hesitate. He raised the rifle, hands shaking, and pulled the trigger. The bullet hit the man's leg. Not fatal, but enough to send him crashing to the dirt. Owen was on him in seconds. He grabbed the man's head and slammed it into the pavement, once, twice, until he stopped moving. Silence. The bodies lay in the dirt. The truck still burned. Lena exhaled sharply. "That's it?" Owen turned. The man with the chain was still alive, clutching a wound in his side. He coughed, spitting blood, but his lips curled into a grin. "You think this is a victory?" he rasped. "You think you've won?" Owen crouched beside him, gripping his knife. "Tell me where the butcher is." The man chuckled. "He's already coming." Owen's blood ran cold. The man grinned wider. "You should have run when you had the chance." Owen didn't hesitate. He drove the knife into the man's throat, ending it. Then he stood, looking at the burning wreckage around them. Lena cursed. "So much for a message." "No," Owen said quietly. This was the message. The butcher would come now. And they would be ready. The world held its breath. Owen sat on the roof of the auto shop, watching the horizon. The night was silent, too silent. The usual distant groans of the infected, the rustling of animals scavenging through ruins, the howl of the wind through broken buildings, gone. A storm was coming. Not of wind and rain, but of blood and fire. Lena sat beside him, cleaning her shotgun with practiced hands. "Think he got the message?" she asked. Owen tightened his grip on his knife. "Yeah." Below, Ryan checked his rifle for the 100th time, his fingers twitching. Ellie sat beside him, wrapped in an old blanket, her face unreadable. She had told them everything. The butcher wasn't just another warlord. He was worse. He ruled with fear, feeding on weakness. His army, more like a cult, believed he was more than a man. That he was something inevitable. Owen had fought monsters before. Tonight, he'd fight another. The first sign of the butcher's arrival was the sound of an engine. A deep, guttural roar, like some wounded beast. Then another. And another. Owen counted at least 3 trucks. More bikers. And then he saw him. A massive figure stood in the bed of the lead truck, gripping the rusted frame like a king surveying his land. He was larger than life, muscle and scarred flesh, wrapped in tattered armor. His face was obscured by a metal mask, jagged and crude, covering everything but his black, hungry eyes. A massive cleaver hung from his belt. Not a weapon. A tool. For cutting. For carving. For butchering. The truck rumbled to a stop. The butcher raised a hand. His men halted, waiting in silence. Then he spoke. "You took from me." His voice was deep, hollow. It carried over the ruined wasteland like a funeral bell. "You killed my men." Lena tensed beside Owen. "You think you are strong," the butcher continued. "You think you can fight me." He stepped down from the truck, his heavy boots crunching against the dirt. Owen stood, gripping his rifle. "Here we go." The butcher spread his arms wide. "Show me." Then chaos erupted. Owen fired the first shot, aiming for the butcher's head. The bullet sparked off his mask. He barely flinched. His men surged forward, bikers, raiders, killers. The auto shop's defenses, traps, barricades, bought them seconds, nothing more. Lena took down the first raider through the door, her shotgun turning him into a mist of red. Ryan fired wildly, missing his first 2 shots, but the third hit a man in the chest, sending him sprawling. Ellie grabbed a wrench and swung, cracking a raider's skull before he could grab her. But the butcher moved. faster than he should have. Owen barely had time to react before the butcher was inside, swinging his cleaver. Owen dodged, barely. The blade shattered the workbench behind him. Lena fired. The butcher caught the shotgun blast with his shoulder and kept coming. Owen grabbed a crowbar and swung, slamming it into the side of the butcher's head. The impact sent a dull clang ringing through the shop. The butcher staggered. Then he laughed. A deep, rumbling sound. Owen's stomach twisted. This man was a monster. Lena cursed. "Owen, move!" The butcher lunged, grabbing Owen by the throat. He lifted him effortlessly, slamming him into the wall. The world blurred. Owen gasped for air, his vision darkening. Then a gunshot rang out. The butcher stumbled. Ellie stood behind him, Ryan's rifle in her hands, smoke still curling from the barrel. The butcher turned. Owen moved. His knife found the butcher's side. He twisted. The butcher let out a guttural growl, swinging wildly. Owen rolled away as the cleaver struck the floor. Lena fired again. Ryan reloaded. Ellie didn't hesitate, she shot again, and again, and again. The butcher staggered. His men were dead. His mask, cracked. His body, broken. Owen stood, breathing hard. The butcher dropped to one knee. Blood leaked from his wounds, pooling beneath him. He looked up at Owen. And smiled. "This changes nothing," he rasped. "There are always more." Owen tightened his grip on his knife. "Not for you." And then he ended it. The sun rose over the wasteland. The battle was over. Ellie sat beside Ryan, staring at the body of the man who had once owned her. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Lena wiped blood from her face. "So what now?" Owen looked at the horizon. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing. They weren't running anymore. The wasteland had taken everything from them. Now, it was time to take something back.